Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2015. The case on trial is Commonwealth v. Aaron Hernandez, indictment BRCR 2013-0983. The Honorable E. Susan Garsh presiding.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all thank you so much for your patience. As I told you at the outset, from time to time, sometimes I need to deal with matters with counsel. Hopefully we will not have such long delays again, but it does happen from time to time. Let me ask you, in particular, keeping in mind that this was a Super Bowl weekend, so there possibly may have been references to Mr. Hernandez and articles about the Patriots or other articles, so really think hard. Have any of you seen or heard or read or overheard anything at all about this case or about Mr. Hernandez since I last inquired? There are no affirmative responses. Have any of you discussed this case or Mr. Hernandez with anybody at all since I last inquired? There are no affirmative responses. And have any of you had any difficulty following any of my instructions not to talk about, look at, or do any research about this case or Mr. Hernandez, anything that could be connected to this case? There are no affirmative responses. One of your number has been excused for purely personal reasons having nothing to do with any of the issues in this case. It will not affect our ability to go forward. Is the witness going to resume the stand?
Yes, Your Honor.
The witness may resume the stand.
Ms. Jenkins, I remind you that you're under oath on Friday. Do you understand that?
Yes, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You may.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I think when we left off the other day, I was asking you some questions about times that you had spent in North Attleboro,
Yes.
and you indicated that you would come approximately every other weekend?
It varied, but yeah.
Okay. Just directing your attention back to March and April, do you recall going to North Attleboro during those months?
It's possible. I don't really remember.
Okay. Do you know if Aaron Hernandez, the defendant, was in North Attleboro during March and April?
I don't think so.
Oh, do you know where he was?
I think he was still in California.
Okay. When do you recall him first being back in North Attleboro?
Maybe May, the end of May.
And do you recall how many occasions that you visited in North Attleboro in May?
Maybe once or twice.
And on those one or two occasions, did Odin visit North Attleboro with you?
Most likely, yes.
And what about in June? How many occasions did you visit North Attleboro where Odin also joined you?
Twice.
Okay. And I think you had indicated there was an event that occurred in June.
Yes.
And what was that?
My sister's birthday party.
Okay, and that was what weekend?
First weekend in June.
And what about the following weekend? Do you know if you returned?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you know if Odin knew anyone else in North Attleboro?
No, he did not.
And on the occasions that, did you ever have an occasion from North Attleboro to go and meet Odin at his home?
Yes.
And how many times did you do that?
Numerous times.
And would you follow a particular route going from the home in North Attleboro, 22 Ronald C. Meyer?
Yes.
Okay, and how would you drive from that location to meet Odin in Boston?
I don't know the highways, but I would go through the industrial park, take the highway near the grocery store. Then I know there was an exit towards Boston, and I'd end up driving on back roads near Curry College, I believe, all the way down Blue Hill Ave, and then I'd be near his home.
Okay. Approximately how long would it take you to drive that route to get to his home?
About 45 minutes to an hour.
And what was, where, Did you know the address where Odin lived?
Yes,
And what was that?
10 Fayston Street,
And can you just describe that area?
one-way street, a bunch of houses, just residential area.
Now, did you know whether Odin was involved in any sports?
Yes,
And what sports was he involved in?
football,
And did he play for a team?
yes,
What team was that?
Boston Bandits,
And where did they play, if you know?
around Boston,
Do you know what kind of league that was?
semi-pro.
And do you know what position he played?
I do not.
Now, how did you refer to Odin?
What do you mean?
Did you refer to him by his name, Odin, or do you have a nickname?
For the most part, by his name.
Okay. Do you know whether the defendant referred to him by any other name?
Yes, O.
I'm sorry?
O.
Okay. And when, on the occasions that you were in the spring of 2013, that you would be at the home in North Attleboro, the defendant's home and your sister's home, did you ever see any of the defendant's friends?
Yes,
Okay. And what friends did you see or meet there?
there were a lot that came in and out.
Okay. Do you know an individual by the name of, or did you know somebody referred to as Bo?
Yes,
And do you know what his true name is?
now I do, yes.
Okay, and what is that?
Ernest Wallace.
Okay. When did you first meet Bo?
I want to say after California.
Okay, when you say California, you indicate the defendant had spent some time in the spring in California.
Correct.
When, if at any time, did you go to California?
The end of March.
And how long were you out there for?
A couple days.
And so after you returned from California, when would have been the next occasion, to your memory, that you would have been up, or strike that you would have had the occasion to meet this individual, Ernest Wallace, also known as Bo?
Probably, I know he was there for the birthday party in June, but I think I met him before that, so probably the end of May.
Okay. And when you met him, was that at North Attleboro?
Yes.
How, just tell us, do you know, was he, where he was living at that time?
I don't know.
Okay, do you know whether he ever stayed at the Ronald C. Meyer?
Yes.
And how many occasions did you see him staying at the defendant's home?
A lot.
And when he stayed, where would he stay?
In the bedroom in the basement.
Now, you described an area in the basement the last time you were here that had the pool table in
Yes.
it. And where is there a bedroom in the basement in relation to where that pool table room is?
It's the left side, so on the same wall that the bar is on.
Okay. And so does that, going from the room where the bar is, can you then access that bedroom?
Yes.
And is there a bathroom in that area?
Yes.
Is that adjoining the bar or the bedroom?
The bedroom.
How many bedrooms were in that basement area?
One.
And when you said he would stay down there, did you see what else he was doing around the home of the defendant during the occasions that you were visiting?
Not anything that stood out or anything in particular.
And do you know whether he was working at that time?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know what, if anything, he was doing for the defendant, Aaron Hernandez?
Not anything specific. I mean, just drove him around and he was always around.
Okay, when you say he was always around, how would you characterize his presence around the defendant?
I'm going to ask you not to characterize, but you may describe what you saw or what you observed.
Okay. I just saw him drive Aaron around, or he was just always present when Aaron was there.
Okay, and when you say he was drive him around, what was he driving?
The rental cars.
And when you say the rental cars, what kind of rental cars was he driving?
They varied, but the last one was, I believe, it was a big truck, so maybe like a Tahoe or a Suburban,
And do you know what color that Tahoe or Suburban was?
like a silverish gray, I believe.
And do you know who was renting these vehicles?
I assumed it was Aaron.
Okay.
I'm going to strike that. Unless you have direct knowledge, we're not asking you to make any assumptions.
Okay.
Now, do you know this individual you've referred to as Ernest Wallace or Bo? Do you know what relation, do you know whether he had ever met Odin?
Outside of,
Or just at any time? Was
Yeah.
Odin ever over there when Ernest Wallace was present?
yes,
Okay, on how many occasions would you say Odin was at the home when Bo was at the home?
numerous occasions.
Just going to show you this photograph and ask you if you recognize the person depicted in the photograph.
Yes,
Who do you recognize that to be?
Bo,
Does that fairly and accurately portray him as you knew him?
yes.
Your Honor, I don't. This is the next exhibit. Okay.
Marked as the next exhibit.
Oh, this is Your Honor.
Me.
I'm just placing this on the overhead. This has now been marked exhibit number 20. Is that the photograph you just identified?
Yes.
And just generally describe Ernest Wallace for us.
He was an older male, kind of a pot belly, salt and pepper hair,
How would he wear his hair generally when you would see him?
short like in the picture.
Do you know where he was from?
I don't.
And do you know, or how would you characterize the relationship between Odin Lloyd and Bo? Objection.
You may again describe what you saw.
They seemed friendly when they were around each other, but that was kind of the extent of it.
Okay. Do you know whether they had a relationship outside of the occasions that you would be with Odin at North Attleboro?
Not that I'm aware of.
Now, did you also know an individual by the name of Alexander Bradley?
Yes.
And did you know him by a nickname?
Sherrod?
Okay. And were there ever occasions that you would see him at the home of Aaron Hernandez?
Yes.
Okay. And when would you see him there?
That was before California.
Okay. And just in terms of their relationship, how would you describe that?
They seemed close.
Approach on
Me.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you these two documents and ask you if you recognize what's depicted in them. This one first.
Yes.
Okay, what do you recognize that to be?
The layout of the house.
Okay, and what level is this layout?
The middle level, the main level.
When you say the main level, what if, just in terms of first floor, second floor, ground?
First floor.
Okay. And what about this second document I'm showing you? What do you recognize that to be?
The basement.
Okay. And do both of these documents fairly and accurately portray the layout of the house at 22 Roland C. Meyer?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd offer these.
No objection as chalks.
They may be used as chalks, not as exhibits. In other words, they can be used to, you can look at them in listening to the testimony and the witness to see if they're any aid to you as you listen to the testimony, but they will not be exhibits themselves.
Could we mark these then?
Should we mark them for identification?
CNG
Thank you. Like, could you run color sheets? Put them on the overhead. Ma'am, I'm going to place on the overhead here what's now marked as C for identification. Can you see that all right?
Yes.
If I could just have a moment. Is that a little better in terms of the lighting?
Yes.
Okay, so this C for identification, you indicated this is a diagram of what level?
The first floor?
Okay, and just beginning from the right-hand side here, can you indicate, as you would come to the house, when you drove, was there a driveway?
Yes.
And where would you come up the driveway?
Come over here.
Okay, and you're just indicating to the right-hand side here?
Correct.
And the other day you described there were a couple of garages.
Yes.
Could you just point those out?
right here.
Okay, you're indicating here and also over here.
Yes.
And you indicated there was a two-car garage and a one-car garage.
Correct.
And just, does that show on this chart?
Yes.
Now, with regard to entrance into the house, the other day you described you could get into the house through the garage.
Correct.
And how would you do that?
Through the garage doors, or there was a door off of the one-car garage.
Okay, and if you just point out where that is. You're indicating this area over here.
Yes.
Now, if you went, if you entered through a different way, can you describe how you could also enter the home?
Through the front door?
Okay, did you ever enter through the front?
Yes.
And just describe, if you parked your car, where generally did you park your car?
Normally on the side of the one-car garage, to the
And when
right
you say on
of
the
it.
side of the one-car garage, just if you would indicate where that is. And that's over in this area?
Yes.
Now, in the back, where you would park, is there, how deep did that go along the side of that one-car garage?
Probably the depth of the garage.
Okay, and what happened at the end of that distance?
You'd go into the backyard.
Okay, and when you say you go into the backyard, was there any break between that area and then where the backyard?
There was a fence, and then there's a little walkway, and you go into the backyard.
When you say there's a fence, was there some access point you could pass through the fence, like a gate?
Yes.
Where would that be?
Right in the front of where my car would be.
And now, a moment ago, I asked you about entering the house at a different point. You said the front door. Just show us where that is located. And that's over in here?
Yes.
Okay. And that front door, was there a walkway along the front of the house?
Yes.
And just, if you would indicate where that would start and run to.
Probably somewhere over here, and then just come up to the...
Okay, so along this area here.
Yes.
Now, having entered the house through the front door, tell us what room do you come into?
It's the foyer.
Okay, and are there rooms off the foyer?
Yes.
And are those depicted on this chart?
Yes.
Okay, so the foyer area, is that reflected here?
Yes.
And how about to the right? What is that? What room is that?
The dining room,
And what about to the left?
the formal living room.
And what if you go straight?
You can either go up the stairs or go into the living room.
Now, if you went to the, well, were you familiar with a closet on the first floor near the foyer? Strike that. If, when you came into the foyer, you went into the living room, is there a closet in that area?
Yes.
Okay, and could you just identify where that is? You're indicating this
Yes.
WIC?
Correct.
Okay. And now, in the foyer area, was there access to the basement?
Yes.
And how would you get to the basement?
This door.
You're indicating right there.
Correct.
Now, if you went through the foyer and moved toward now the back of the house, what area of the home would you be in?
The living room,
Okay. And just generally describe the living room.
just a big open room, couch, TV.
Okay. And was the kitchen near the living room?
Yes.
And where is that? Is this, you're indicating this area here?
Correct.
And with regard to now the kitchen area, did you indicate the other day there was access to the garage?
Yes.
And how would you access that?
Come through here.
Okay, and you're indicating through this, is that a hallway there?
Yes.
Now, were you familiar with the other day you indicated there was a surveillance system?
Yes.
You described some certain cameras?
Yes.
Okay, can you just, and Your Honor, if I could approach the witness.
Me.
I'm just going to give you a red pen. If you wouldn't mind just approximating the locations of where, oh, I beg your pardon. I'm going to have you just mark, if you would, on C for identification, the locations of any of the surveillance cameras, the approximate locations. Okay. Okay, thank you. Could you just put this back on real quick? So, I'm just putting that back down, and you've indicated with the red pen that there are a number of locations. Why don't we start on the right-hand side here? That X there, just describe what that is, what it represents.
Near the garages outside.
Okay. And now along the front here, you've indicated 2.
Correct.
What does that represent?
2 on the porch.
Okay. And then as you come through the foyer, you have 1 on this little short wall to the right here.
Yes.
What does that represent?
A camera that's on the wall.
Okay. And what about now on this, where this, as you move now into what's this great room?
Camera on the wall in the living room.
Okay. And then lastly, there's 1 in the back.
Yes.
Does that indicate a camera inside or outside?
I believe it's outside.
I'm just going to put what's been marked D for identification. You recognize the scene this depicts.
Yes.
And what is that?
The basement.
Now, earlier you indicated you could access the basement by through a door in the foyer.
Yes.
Can you just show us where that would bring you, where that stairs would lead you to in the basement area?
Down here.
You're indicating down in this area?
Correct.
And the other day, when you were asked about the pool table and a room with a bar. Can you just show us if that's shown in this diagram?
Yes.
Okay, would you point to that now, please?
This area.
Okay, you're indicating this area here?
Yes.
Do you recognize what's depicted in this rectangle here?
It's like the bar.
Okay. And you also had described there was a home theater. Is that shown on this diagram?
Yes,
Okay, and where would that be? Over here?
yes,
And were there other areas of the basement that were unfinished?
yes.
Okay, and if you could just point to those areas. Here. Yeah. Okay. And with regard to, you described there was a bedroom that Bo would stay in times when he was at the defendant's home.
Yes,
Is that shown on this diagram?
yes,
Can you just point to that, please? It's over in this area. And you, when I asked you earlier, I had asked if there was a connecting bath or adjoining bath, is that right?
yes,
Is that shown?
yes.
And if you just please point that out. And lastly, was there some type of exercise room there?
Yes,
And just, if you would show us where that's located. Up in the left-hand corner?
yes.
Now, that area there, do you know if there were any, well, what area of the property did that front? Say, over here,
The backyard.
okay? And do you know if it was a walkout backyard?
Yes,
Now, do you know of any cameras or surveillance equipment that was located in the lower level here on D for identification?
yes.
Okay, and do you know of any cameras locations?
I know that there was a camera, I'm not sure where.
Okay, and the other day you had described that there was the surveillance, or strike that there was equipment behind in the theater room?
Yes,
And what type of equipment was located there?
just the theater equipment, I suppose.
Go on and approach.
You may.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you a series of photographs, ask you if you recognize the scene depicted in each one. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes,
And what is that?
Aaron and my sister's home.
Does that depict, on the right-hand side, does that show the garage, the one-car garage?
Yes,
Does it fairly and accurately portray the property?
yes,
Second photograph, do you recognize it?
yes.
What is this photograph depict?
The side of the one-car garage.
Third photograph, you recognize that?
Yes,
What does that show?
the backyard.
Fourth photograph, what does that show?
The back porch.
Fifth photograph, do you recognize it?
Yes,
What does that show?
the backyard.
Sixth photograph, what does that depict?
The back entrance to the basement.
Seventh photograph,
The two-car garage.
eighth one.
The inside of the garage.
Ninth photograph,
The garage entrance to the house.
10th photograph,
The kitchen.
the 11th,
The front entrance.
12?
The foyer area?
And with regard to the foyer area, what direction is that depicting?
Dining room entrance?
I believe 13th.
Foyer area, living room entrance?
14th.
The front stairwell?
15th.
The basement stairs?
16th.
The closet?
17th.
The living room?
18th.
The living room?
And 19th.
The master bedroom?
And do all of these photographs fairly and accurately depict the scenes, various points in the home?
Yes.
I don't think this is the next. Okay.
You marked as the next exhibits?
Could we mark it as a series, please, John?
Do you want a series? Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone A through S.
Me.
Okay, on the first one, 21A is now on the screen. Does that show the location of that one-car garage?
Yes.
Is that over on the side here?
Yes.
Only 1B is on the screen now. Does that show that area over by the one-car garage?
Yes.
You indicated that there was a gate that separated the properties that's shown?
Yes.
C, what does that show?
The backyard?
And is there a pool and pool house in that area?
Yes.
21D, what is that area there?
The back porch?
And when you say the back porch, if you went through, there are doors there, is that true?
Yes.
And if you went through those doors, what area of the home would you be in?
The living room?
21E, what does that show?
The backyard?
And is there a gate that also separates some other part of the property?
Yes.
And where is that located? You're indicating over in here?
Yes.
And if you went through that gate, what area of the property would you go to?
You'd go to where you would enter the basement?
Okay. 21F now on the overhead. Recognize this area?
Yes.
What area is this?
The back entrance to the basement?
And this area here, if you went through those doors, where would you find yourself in the home?
Exercise room?
That's in the basement area?
Correct.
21G, what is this photo depict?
The two-car garage?
Okay. Now, there's a vehicle in the foreground, is that true?
Yes.
Whose vehicle is that?
My sister's?
And what kind of vehicle is that?
An Audi?
And its color?
White?
Now, 21H, you see that all right?
Yes.
And okay. Is that light enough for you to see there?
Yes.
Okay. What does this photo depict?
The inside of the garage?
And is this the two-car garage?
Yes.
And do you see a vehicle in this photograph?
Yes.
Do you recognize that vehicle?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
The old vehicle that was in the garage?
Was that in the position when you testified the other day about seeing the vehicle in the garage?
Yes.
Did you ever see it move from that position?
No.
Uh, 21I is now on the overhead. Do you recognize the scene depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
The entrance to the house?
Okay. And how would you enter the house from here?
Go up the stairs?
And where do you find yourself going up the stairs?
In-
What room of the house?
The hallway area that takes you to the kitchen?
21J, you recognize this scene?
Yes.
And what does that show?
The kitchen?
And the area you indicated just a minute ago in the prior exhibit, does it show the access point in this photograph?
Yes.
And where would that be? You're indicating over in this area?
Yes.
It's at the end of the hallway on this end.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in this, in the kitchen area, was there access to that living room or great room area?
Yes.
And where would that be? You're indicating over here?
Yes.
Now, on that wall between the kitchen and the living room, was there any type of electronic device?
Yes.
And what type of device was that?
It was a device on the wall where you can, I believe, access surveillance and play music.
I see. And when you say access surveillance, did you ever look at that device?
Yes.
And would you be able to see things in or around the property?
I did not personally, no.
21K, recognize the scene depicted there?
Yes.
And what is that?
The front porch?
Okay, in the front porch, would that be the way that you would enter the house from the front?
Correct.
And were there any, you indicated there were some cameras in this area?
Yes.
Can you just describe or point out where those are? You're indicating one right here,
Yes.
and also one further down over there.
Yes.
Do you know what kind of cameras those were?
No.
Placing 21L on the overhead, do you recognize this scene?
Yes.
And just tell us, what is that?
It's the foyer.
Okay, and which direction is this picture facing in the foyer?
Pointing to the dining room?
And is that, when you come in through the front door, that's off to the right?
Correct.
And what about this next photograph, 21M? Describe what that is.
It's the foyer showing the entrance to the formal living room and the entrance to the basement.
N. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what does that show?
The stairs going to the second floor.
Okay. And you indicated previously when I asked you about any cameras, and you noted on that chalk, do you see any camera depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
And where would that be? You're indicating over here?
Yes.
Exhibit 21O. Just going to point it that way for you. You recognize this?
Yes.
What is that?
Stairs going to the basement.
21P. Recognize this?
Yes.
And what is that?
Closet.
And where is this closet?
Right outside of the formal living room door and the office door.
If you recall earlier when you were looking at the chalk area that was had WIC on it.
Yes.
Okay, is that the same?
Yes.
And 21Q, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize this to be?
It's the living room.
And is there a TV in this living room?
Yes.
Where is it located? You're indicating over the left-hand side of this photograph,
Yes.
so it's not visible, is that true?
Correct.
Now, these doors and windows, where do they, what area of the property do they open to?
The backyard.
Listing 21R on the overhead. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
The living room.
Is that just a different viewpoint of the living room?
Yes.
And what direction is that facing in?
The foyer.
And earlier, you were when you were showing the chalk, you indicated there was a location of another camera in this area.
Yes.
Is it depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
Can you just point to that location? You're indicating right here?
Yes.
And then last is 21S. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes.
And what does this depict?
The master bedroom.
And on what level is that?
The second floor.
And were there any electronic devices on the wall in this room?
Yes.
And where were those located? You're indicating over in here.
Yes.
Can you describe what those devices were?
Was to look at their surveillance tapes, and you can play music on that as well.
Do you recall the last occasion that you saw Odin?
Yes,
When was that?
the second weekend in June.
Okay. And that following weekend, at the time, June of 2013, how frequently were you speaking to each other?
Every day.
Okay. Did you have his phone number?
Yes,
And what was his phone number at that time?
617-785-3008,
And what was your phone number at that time?
860-518-9171.
And that following, you indicated that you had seen him, that would have been the second weekend of June?
Correct.
That following weekend, did you have any phone contact with him?
Yes,
Now, directing your attention to June 15th, the morning of June 15th, 2013, do you recall receiving a phone call from anybody?
yes.
And who did you receive a phone call from?
My sister,
And approximately what time was it?
around 7 or 7:30, I believe.
And your sister, her name?
Cheyenne Jenkins,
And at that time, do you know what her phone number was?
860-502-2593.
And did you speak with your sister?
Yes,
And how long did you speak with her?
maybe a couple minutes.
And could you just describe her demeanor or her tone of voice during that phone call?
She sounded a little irritated.
As a result of that phone call, did you do anything?
Yes,
What did you do?
called Odin.
And were you able to reach Odin?
No,
Did you try again?
I texted him.
And when you texted him, were you able to make contact with him?
Yes,
And as a result of that contact, did you later have a phone conversation with him?
yes,
And did you also later have a phone conversation with your sister?
yes,
Now, on the following day, that was, do you recall that being a Sunday?
yes,
And do you know whether that was a holiday of sorts?
yes.
What day was it?
Father's Day,
And where were you on Father's Day? In terms of, were you in Massachusetts or Connecticut?
Connecticut.
And at some point during that date, did you also have phone contact with Odin?
Yes,
And approximately what time did you speak to Odin?
I believe I spoke to him several times, but the last time was probably around 9 or 9:30 that night.
Okay. And where were you?
I was home in Connecticut.
Okay. How long did you speak to him that time?
Wasn't too long, maybe 15 minutes at the most.
And just during that conversation, did he express an intention to do something the following day? Just yes or no?
Yes,
What did he say?
he said he was going to work and that he had to return the rental car after work.
Okay. And at approximately what time did your conversation end?
Around 9:30, I believe.
And did you indicate that you would do something the following day?
Yes,
And what was that?
call him on my,
Objection is overruled.
I'm sorry?
call him on my way to work.
Okay. After that call, at some point, did you go to bed?
Yes,
And what time did you wake up the next morning?
around 6.
And did you go to work on that day?
Yes,
Where were you working?
Bendette and McHugh.
And did you have some time to commute between your home and work?
Yes,
And what did you do during that commute?
I called Odin,
And approximately what time would that have been?
maybe 7:30.
Okay. And were you able to make phone contact with him?
No,
Did you attempt to call him after that?
yes,
And what time did you attempt to call him?
around lunchtime.
And were you able to make phone contact with him at that time?
No,
And did you attempt to call him after that?
yes,
What time did you try him again?
around 8 o'clock that night.
Were you able to make phone contact with him?
No,
Sometime after 8 o'clock, do you recall what time you went to bed that night? Approximately?
maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Okay. And after you went to bed, some point were you awakened later in the night or the early morning hours?
Yes,
And how were you awakened?
by phone call.
And when you, did you answer the phone?
After the second time, yes.
Okay. And did you speak to somebody?
Yes,
That person identify themselves to you?
yes.
And who did that person identify himself to be?
Trooper Benson?
Okay, and Trooper Benson, and did he identify his office?
I believe so.
Okay, and do you recall what that was?
North Attleboro, I believe.
And do you know whether he was with the state police?
I don't remember.
Okay. And had you been sleeping prior to this phone call?
Yes,
And did you have a conversation with him?
yes.
And approximately how long did that call last?
Maybe 10, 15 minutes.
And did you learn something at that time?
Yes.
And what did you learn?
That Odin was dead.
Okay. As a result of learning that, did you try, or did you call anybody?
Yes.
Who did you call?
My mother.
Okay. And did you speak with her?
Yes.
And after speaking with her, did you try and call anybody else?
Yes.
Who else did you try and call?
My sister,
And which sister did you try and call?
Cheyenne.
Were you able to get through, make phone contact with Shayana?
Not immediately, no.
Okay. How did you try, after your initial attempt, did you try again?
Yes.
Were you able to get through on that occasion?
No.
How about at some time after the first two attempts, did you get a phone call?
Yes.
And who was that from?
Cheyenne.
Were you able to have a conversation with her, just yes or no at that time?
Yes.
And could you hear anything in the background?
Just sounded like she was in the car.
And how long did you speak to her, if you recall?
I believe only a couple minutes.
Now, after speaking to her, did you then do something? Did you go somewhere?
Yes.
Where did you go?
To go pick up my uncle.
And your uncle, where was he at that time?
In Bristol at a 7-Eleven.
And did you meet anybody, did anyone else go with you to meet your uncle?
My mother.
After meeting with your mother and your uncle, what did you do?
I drove to Massachusetts.
What time would you say you left Connecticut?
Around 2:30 in the morning
And how long, where did you go from there?
to Fayston Street.
And how long did it take you leaving at approximately 2:30 in the morning?
About an hour and a half, I believe.
And who, if anyone, went with you?
My uncle.
And just tell us, what did you do when you went to Fayston Street?
I visited with his family.
Okay. Were people awake?
Yes.
And had you previously met his family members?
Yes.
And were you able to see them at that time on that date?
Yes.
Now, would that have been in the, when you're referring to leaving Connecticut 2:30 in the morning, that would be now on what date?
The 18th?
Okay, June 18th?
Correct.
Do you recall that being a Tuesday?
Yes.
And how long did you remain at Fayston Street?
Maybe around an hour.
And after an hour, what did you do?
I drove to my sister's house.
Did you, on the way to your sister's house, driving to your sister's house, did you have any phone contact with her?
Yes.
And how long did it take you leaving Fayston Street? Approximately what time did you leave, would you estimate?
Maybe around 5 o'clock.
Okay. Approximately how long did it take you to get to Fayston Street? Strike that, to 22 Ronald C. Meyer.
Between 45 minutes to an hour.
And approximately what time did you arrive then at Ronald C. Meyer?
I think a little bit before 6.
And when you arrived at that time, just tell us what you did.
I went into the house, saw my sister, hugged my sister, and then just sat on the couch, I believe.
And was your sister up when you arrived?
Yes.
And what about the defendant? Did you see him when you arrived?
Not right away, no.
When you say not right away, how long was it after you arrived that you saw the defendant?
I think at least an hour.
And when you came into the home after greeting your sister, where did you go?
Just stayed in the living room.
In the living room area, that I understand that you'd mentioned a formal living room, and then the other, what was referred to as a great room or living room.
Yes.
Which room were you in?
The great room.
And at some time after this time that you were in the living room, or later, did you then see the defendant in the home?
Yes.
And where did you first see him?
In the dining room.
Okay. When you first saw him in the dining room, well, let me ask you this. At some point, did you leave the living room?
Yes.
And when you left the living room, where did you go?
To the dining room.
And was there a reason you had gone into the dining room?
I was just pacing.
And when you went into the dining room, did you see the defendant there at some point?
Yes.
And tell us about that.
Came into the dining room, asked me if I was okay, put his hand on my shoulder, kind of rubbed my shoulder, and told me he'd been through this death thing before, it'll get better with time.
Okay. And how long did he interact with you in the dining room?
That was it.
Where did he go from there?
Upstairs.
And did you see him then, in the time that followed, moving about the house?
I don't remember.
Okay. At some point in time, did the defendant then leave the house?
Yes.
And do you know where he was going?
I don't.
Had you had any more conversation with him during the time that this brief interaction in the dining room before he left?
No.
What happened after he left? What were you doing?
I just stayed in the living room, I believe.
Okay. And were you there for some number of hours?
Yes.
Were you, was anyone else, who, if anyone else, was in the living room with you during that time?
My sister, my niece, and my uncle.
Okay. And your niece is that the infant child, AVL?
Correct.
And approximately how old was she at this time?
Maybe 7 months.
Okay. And during the time that you were in the living room, where was your uncle, Donnie?
He was in the living room on the couch.
Now, how long would you say you remained downstairs in the living room area on June 18th of 2013?
Couple hours.
And at some point closer now to midday, so noon to approximately 1 o'clock, do you recall being in the living room with your sister Shayana?
Yes.
And was something happening that that attracted your attention?
Yes.
Just describe what you observed.
She kept receiving phone calls, and her responses were very short, or she kept getting up and leaving the room when the phone rang.
Did you know, meaning could you hear any voice, any conversation that she was having with another person? Just yes or no?
No.
Okay. When you say she kept getting text messages, and how was she behaving after receiving these text messages?
Just not normal.
Okay, and just describe what she was doing when you say not normal.
Secretive.
Okay, and just describe your relationship with your sister prior to that time.
Very close.
And as a result of her behavior that you were observing, did you see her go anywhere in the home?
Yes.
And where, when she was receiving these text messages or phone calls, where would she go?
basement.
And how many times did you see her go to the basement?
2 or 3 times.
Now, do you recall on one occasion, on the last occasion you saw her go to the basement, that could you see if she had something with her?
Yes.
What did she have with her?
A black garbage bag.
When you say a black garbage bag, just describe what you mean.
It looked like a brand new garbage bag, kind of folded in her hand.
And when she was going to the basement with that folded in her hand, how was she acting at that time?
Normal, I guess.
Okay. And when you say normal, did she tell you just yes or no what she was doing?
No.
Now, when she went to the basement, how did she access the basement when you saw her with the black trash bag?
Through the door in the foyer.
And was that shown earlier when I was showing you photographs? Is that the door you're referring to?
Yes.
And when she went to the basement, how long did she go down there?
For a couple minutes.
And could you hear anything during those couple of minutes that she had gone into the basement?
No.
At any point when she had gone down to the basement, did you see her?
Yes.
And when did you see her?
When she was walking outside in the backyard.
Okay. And when you say she was walking outside in the backyard, where did you see her?
I saw her from the living room doors walking back towards the basement.
Okay. And when you say walking back towards the basement, just if you were you facing those doors?
Yes.
And in terms of the direction you were facing, what direction is that in the house? Is it the front of the house, the back of the house, or the sides?
It's the back of the house.
Okay. And when you saw her, from what direction was she moving?
She was coming from the right side,
And moving in which direction?
back towards the basement, the left side of the house.
Okay. And did you know what she was doing?
No,
Did she have anything in her possession at that time?
not that I could see.
At some point in time, did she disappear from your sight?
Yes,
And when is the next time you saw her?
when she came back up through the basement door.
And when she came back up through the basement door, did she have anything with her?
Not that I can remember.
When she returned, did you have a conversation with her?
Yes,
And did she ask to borrow something from you?
yes.
And what was that?
She asked to borrow my car.
And what did you say?
Yes,
Had she ever borrowed your car before?
not that I can remember.
And when she asked to borrow your car, did she say where she was going?
Overruled.
Yes,
And where did she say she was going?
to the bank.
And did she describe the purpose in going to the bank?
She needed to get money for the housekeepers.
And as a result of that, did you...
Strike that last answer.
Your Honor, could we come to the sidebar briefly?